got a quick story and then how to actually apply this story to your first and second meetings to stand out from every other advisor. So, if you want to stand out from other advisors, you have to take a risk by asking questions that other advisors don't ask. So, here's the story, and then I'll get to the applicable things. So, Cal Fussman, he's interviewed many of the greats out there in politics and economics and sports and things like that. But Cal, he was in this interview, he was sitting in a room waiting for one of the biggest interviews of his life. And he prepared for weeks. And it was Mikhail Gorbachev. He agreed to a 60-minute meeting with Cal, and Cal was determined to figure out how and why Gorbachev was able to make peace with Reagan and the world and end the Cold War. So he's in the room shortly before the meeting. His Gorbachev's assistant comes in and says, "I apologize, Mr. Gorbachev only has 10 minutes." And then Cal's heart sank, and he was thinking, "Oh, it's impossible to create a deep connection and get." I prepared for 3 weeks or such to get him to open up and to have a great interview. I can't do it in 10 minutes. This is a waste. And the assistant was like, "Well, you want to skip it?" And he's like, "No, let's still meet. I still want to meet him." So Mr. Gorbachev came in, sat down, they exchanged pleasantries, and there's about 8 minutes left. So Gorbachev, he was meeting with dozens of people, journalists that day, and people interviewing him, and they're all asking him the same questions about nuclear weapons and the future and what to do next and why he did what he did. So Cal asked a question, first question after the pleasantries, and he said, "What's the best lesson that your father ever taught you?" And Gorbachev was surprised in a good way. So he looks up and he thinks for a minute, and then he recalls a story of from his childhood. And before his dad went off to war, the day before, they went out for ice cream. And Gorbachev is remembering this, all the details and what he learned from his dad that day and what his dad taught him. Really critical point in his life, not knowing if he was ever going to see his dad again because of the circumstances. And then 10 minutes or 8 minutes later, after that, it was 10 minutes was up. So the assistant comes in and says, "Mr. Gorbachev, time to move on to the next interview." And he says, "No, I want to talk to Cal, Mr. Fussman, a little bit more." And the assistant says, "Okay, I'll be back soon." So they continued. And Cal was able to connect on a deeper way, a deeper level than any other journalist did that day. And he discovered insights even Gorbachev hadn't ever considered before. And it was an incredible interview. So Cal was able to take a risk, and he asked these questions and he connected with the heart. So that assistant came in after now total of 20 minutes, and he said, "Okay, time to go, Mr. Gorbachev." And Gorbachev said, "No, I'm talking to him." And they had another 10 minutes or so where he got 30 minutes total. So how do we apply that story, that idea or concept as a financial advisor? Well, here's one example. If you know the one-page plan, and if you know the idea of bringing up values when presenting to a prospective client, you connect and you understand the things that are most important to them in your presentation. You usually, well, what we've found is start with the things most important to them, the things that are core values, and think about asking some hard questions a little bit deeper. So now here's what I'm thinking. You've had the first meeting, understood their values, their financial picture, all the things. You've created the plan, and now you're presenting the plan to them. And to get clear, you bring up their values again. Here's what's most important, what we're planning for. And then a few deeper heart level questions are, do you think any of these important values were passed on to you from your parents? Interesting. It'll make them think. Or are there any money lessons that you think they passed on to you when you were a child? Getting someone to go back in time to when they were a child hopefully brings up good memories. Maybe it brings up bad memories, but it does something powerful when you ask that sort of question. You could also ask, are there any important values that you hope your kids inherit from you? That's interesting because you're not just talking about the financial stuff. You're not talking about the really important stuff, right? They could pass a whole bunch of money to their kids, but if they don't know, if they don't treat it the right way, it could be a burden, could be a detriment to them. So these are just examples, but they're different, right? Think of what questions you might ask that can connect with the heart over the head. And your conversations, they're going to go so much deeper, and the connections are going to be so much greater. So give this a try. Test it out. Maybe just use some of those questions I just went over. If you want to go deeper into this, check out the advisor membership below. And then I'll see you in the next video. Take care.